Hi, this is Amanda.
And this is Jen.
And you're listening to Just This, a podcast that explores everything around being and becoming a mother or parent.
We're excited to have you join us as we dive into the practical details as well as the unseen energetics on topics that span from preconception to years after birth.
Okay, so what are we talking about?
Kids and scheduling. Okay. And well, kind of originally I was talking about how this mom came and talked to us about how online it's like if you don't, do 15 minutes of belly time and then have them listen to Mozart for 20 minutes and then, show them the black and white cards.
Yes.
And then if you don't do these things, your baby's going to turn out dumb or
yeah,
not make it in society. That's like the feeling that it kind of comes across.
So topic for today is schedules, and this can go from post-birth when you have baby for things like sleep or just activity, and then we can expand onto it into parenting with a child.
This is the first time we're in person too, by the way. Just want to mention this on the podcast.
Parenting and the scheduling continues. It never goes away, and there is a balance with that. So the balance of scheduling,
I like that.
Over-scheduling, under-scheduling, how scheduling works, and the management of time versus space with a child, I guess.
So were you a scheduler?
Never. No. I am a very type A person, and I like generally schedules. However, I feel that between having a child and COVID, I learned very quickly how to release the schedule. And this is where I think it's a very interesting topic because everyone has a very different opinion about whether it's beneficial or if it's not beneficial. And I'm in the mind frame of it's neither beneficial or not beneficial. It's just a matter of always coming back to what's going to work for your family and finding a balance. Yes. If you're leaning too far one way, maybe we need a balance in the other direction. I also think what's going to fit your personality. It's an interesting mix. I almost feel that if you're more of an overscheduler with a child, you should lean into the underscheduling. And if you are naturally more of a non-scheduler with a child, you should lean into the scheduling. But I think it brings up an interesting point, which is children, at least, there's this balance of children don't live on schedules.
Yeah.
The time construct is not a thing for them.
It's not, yeah.
And there's this belief, which I somewhat support, of structure being beneficial for babies and children. Babies, not so much. I'm not really sure I believe that the structure for babies is beneficial. What are your thoughts on that?
For babies, I think, what age are you talking?
Babies. Like
newborns, 0 to 3 months,
I'm
3 to 6.
Let's start with 0 to 6.
0 to 6? No, I don't think that necessarily schedules are beneficial.
How about 6 to 1 year?
0 to 3, you're really talking about, they're just on their needs basis. Yeah. 6 months, I think you can start kind of introducing some schedule. The term I really liked, and I think it's from Waldorf School. They kind of go off of rhythms, and I really took that and kind of applied it to schedules. So, for instance, the morning, instead of having a schedule, we had a rhythm, which was that way it left some possibility to kind of move, and maybe getting shoes on took 20 minutes longer today than it normally does, and then that way you have a rhythm as opposed to a schedule, but you're still kind of have some structure. There's some structure around what's happening, but it's fluid within that structure. Does that make sense?
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very healthy way to approach anything with both a baby and a child.
Yeah.
Because babies in their natural state are going to be, and children, things are going to be changing, but especially that first year rapidly. And your ability to respond to that change is kind of vital.
It is vital. And actually kind of hard, too, I think.
Yeah.
To be more adaptable to... I think the hardest thing with scheduling with kids is slowing down and then leaving time for, like, meltdowns and that, like, that slowness that they have about everything. Like, inside it just...
It's hard because we live in a world...
It's so fast-paced.
Even before having my own child, I remember when I would take care of other kids and have to get them to school in the morning or something, and they were so into something they were doing or wanting to tell me about something, and having this moment of, this is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
This child is living in the beauty of the moment, and here in our adult construct society, I'm having to be the one to tell them, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We need to go to school right now.
Get your stuff together.
Yeah. It was a very heartbreaking moment. And I think when you at least have awareness about that, you can try to stop, pause, and ask yourself, is it okay? Do I really need to be in the car in the next 10 minutes?
Right.
Is it going to be a problem if we're 30 minutes late? And then being aware of that also allows you to bring that to your relationships in your life of, I think, what you had suggested with, okay, we're going to plan for this general morning play date or something, and having it be between, this will happen somewhat in this time frame, and making sure the people that are around you are okay with that.
Yeah. Which I think can sometimes be harder too. I remember going out with some moms where they're like, we're out or we're trying to plan things, and they're like, oh, I have to be back at 1 p.m. or whatever because my kid is going to go down for a nap, and that's very structured. And I appreciate that commitment because I think it really is a commitment. But for me, that just never my jam.
Yeah. And again, coming back to each child is very different, and each parent's very different. And if that's working for you, great.
Yeah.
As long as everyone's happy and that's working for you, if it feels like a struggle, that's when I invite people to reevaluate. Is this really working for you?
Right.
Or is this something you've been told that you feel is what you're supposed to do, or if you don't do it this way, then XYZ will happen.
Right.
And oftentimes we tell ourselves XYZ will happen if we don't do something a certain way, and reality is it's fine.
It's fine. It's going to work out okay. Yeah. But I remember, like, I guess why it resonated so much is because I remember feeling that way too. Like, you go online, they're like, oh, show the baby the black and white cards, and show them the, make sure you do tummy time, make sure you take them out in nature, and make sure they get to touch their food and, like, eat it, and make sure. And I feel like it just puts so much unnecessary pressure. And then, if they don't listen to Mozart, they're not going to be a smart kid, like, you might as well just put them in the worst public school or whatever. But if they listen to Mozart and do all this other stuff, then they have that possibility of getting into Harvard or something.
I remember, because Montessori is a big thing around here, at least.
Yep, Montessori.
And the Montessori approach, I think it's had a resurgence. I remember hearing one person say very much about this, like, Instagram versus reality.
Yes.
The reality of a Montessori approach is it's messy.
Yeah.
We a lot of times think things are supposed to be structured, be clean, and that is what's presented to us. But in reality, a lot of these actual concepts come down to not being clean, being messy, not having as much structure. Montessori has a decent amount, but it's more of the philosophy behind it versus the visual of how we are seeing it.
Right.
And the visual can look different depending on the family, but you can apply that philosophy and take it and run with it in so many ways. And I feel that's kind of, I don't know, when you were talking about all the things you need to do for a baby, like, it has to look this way. It doesn't have to look that way. And ultimately, what you're honoring... Well, and this is this could be another good podcast, is the unschooling approach versus schooling, because you have both insights there. But honoring whatever you're, just really nurturing an environment where your child can do what they want to do. Like whatever is interesting in them in the time is what they're wanting to learn or needing to learn. And that starts from baby. If your baby wants to play with Tupperware, if your baby...
It reminds me of this quote I just heard, which was, we need to stop teaching our kids to become adults and start allowing them to be kids. And I think that's like that whole, like tying it back into what we're talking about, like all these things that we want them to do. But if you look at the basis of kids and babies, what is it? It's just play. And play is everything from Tupperware to pots and pans to legit toys. My son recently he was playing with a pitcher, like a water pitcher, like a Tupperware one on his head as a hat. And it just like makes me laugh because, we go to the store and spend like $20, $30, $40, $50. The toy gets played with for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And he plays with a Tupperware.
That's a big common thing with babies. You don't need to spend all this money on toys. They can play with little lids, all the things.
Spoons and
it's rocks. The natural things are what they want, the little things that are very easily accessible. So the other thing I think is important to acknowledge with this whole topic of kids being kids and letting them be kids is sometimes I feel that adults want the structure because they're actually wanting to be, they're so tired. They want to live their life.
Yes.
And it's hard. That's a fair feeling to have. Even if it's not your first child, we have these moments of, I just want my life. And that sometimes includes structure as me not having to bend to the whim of my children at every moment. So I don't know if you want to speak. There's no real solution to it. Again, it's a balance of figuring out when is creating the structure actually benefiting you and going to give you that sense of sovereignty in some way, in a way that is actually not stressing you out more, making you happy, versus when it's not. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, it just makes me think of, like, for instance, that whole giving time to yourself. Yeah, having your own time. And I remember times like trying to get my son to sleep so I could have my time at night. And that was like that structure. Like you got to be in bed at this time so I can have this amount of hours to just do whatever I want after they're asleep. And it's interesting because one consistent thing for me in my own scheduling and rhythm around my son, it's a little bit different, is actually just like waking up earlier or going to bed later than him. So I actually get some time and space. And one thing I did, too, to kind of help with that structure and rhythm is to actually wake up earlier so that there's more space for things to actually take place so that there is some structure, like this is what we're doing. It kind of goes back to rhythm, to be able to slow things down or speed things up as needed without sacrificing becoming stressed.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I agree. For example, babies often sleep when they start sleeping at night. The first nighttime put down, that's their longest stretch. Right. And then they have the smaller stretches as you go into the later hours of morning. And so we would realize we would need to sleep during that stretch. However, between when she would wake up the next time and then the feeding after that, it was really only 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. Yeah. So we would we would sleep for 5 hours at that first stretch. Yeah. Wake up, feed, and then stay up for 2 hours. Yeah. And then do the other feed, and then go to sleep for another 2 hours at that point, because it just it actually made more sense for us. Yeah. But that gets into the whole, I found when I tried to force a schedule, it just would drive me insane. And maybe that's my type A personality. I would be sitting there, especially the night times, and I'm like, why are you not asleep yet? It is. I have been laying with you for 45 minutes. Go to bed.
I think every parent can relate to that.
God, I just am ready for this day to be over. But the more I could lean in again to, I'm just here. I might even fall asleep. I've told my partner, I've set an alarm for 2 hours later, and maybe I take a cat nap while I'm wait. My child just wants to lie here awake next to me for an hour. So I do like the insight you brought there to that, and it's just a matter of a balance in advance. I also really like to take the wisdom, like you were saying, of the child, and I try as much as possible, and I am very fortunate and lucky. We both work for ourselves to some extent, so we can have more of a flexible schedule to some extent, where we get to choose that where we can blur the lines with schedule or not. And then I also recommend, if you are able, choose the times you need to have structure.
Yeah.
And the times that you need to have structure, that's calling your support.
Yeah.
Don't try to put yourself on the times. For example, if I had to schedule meetings, I learned really quickly, don't try to schedule meetings during my child's nap time. That's not a smart move.
No.
Call in the support, pick your 4-hour block or whatever of like, this is when I need this structure in my day. And then for the rest of the time, see how you can be a little bit more flexible. And again, bringing it back to the entrepreneurial thing, any of those tasks that you can do or build into the other nap times. And just always have in the back of your head with babies, children, whatever, that things could change.
Things can change.
At any minute in time.
I think that's like when you're talking there about structure, it makes me think and like reminds me, I think a good thing to keep in mind is that with structure, we're not robots, right? So, and what I mean by that is like, yeah, great, you put your kid down at 8 o'clock every day, but they're not robots. They're not going to like fall asleep at that time. And then also I think structure has to change in conjunction with our seasons. Like huge. Yeah. I mean, I can't be up at 9 o'clock the way that I am in the summer as it is in the winter. Yeah, like that's just natural biology. Yeah.
It's just natural biology in humans. And that leans into as kids get a little bit older, which is an interesting concept that babies actually don't have any concept of seasons. They are so much in the Piscean oneness that there is no time. There are no seasons. And it's a matter of, I think it's actually really, when you can lean into that, such a cool way to experience it, because we're so far apart from that. In our day-to-day lives.
It's interesting touching on the whole babies don't have any concept of time thing. I think newborns, especially like that first week, and really as you get into like the months after, it kind of dwells out, but that whole idea that babies are up during the night because it's finally the time that you're most likely laying down. So, like during the day when you're pregnant, talking about preconception, you're shaking the baby constantly, right? And who doesn't want to be like shaking a nice, warm, tight little like womb? And then at night, it's quiet and you're laying down, so that's when baby's active. So when they're born, they follow that same rhythm. And it's maybe not structured, but there's a rhythm to that. That like, and that's why they're up a lot during the night when they're younger, until they kind of, adjust to having light and all the other things as far as time goes. Yeah. But I don't know exactly what age that would be.
Well, they say that's that the fourth trimester, the first 3 months, and that they also say don't even try to.
It just doesn't work out.
Yeah. Sleep is a beast of a topic.
Yeah, we won't go into that more, but
one other thing with the structure, and I guess this is kind of structured, and it's interesting because I want to say build in the free time or build in the space. Make sure you have that for yourself from baby stage, and then as kiddos get older, for the kiddo as well. Yeah. Because it's very easy to over schedule for yourself and for kiddos.
Yes.
So in some ways, maybe it is saying be structured by not having structure and building in that space. But I consider it more of a balance and, again, a rhythm of, if we had a busy day, if I know we're going to potentially have a busy day this day, I'm going to try my best to not put 3 busy days back to back.
Yes.
Or I'm going to build in this, if I know our morning is an activity that's going to take a lot out of you or me, or talking me and child, then I'm going to make sure our afternoon is open and we don't have anything. And I think just the awareness of that, of how do we balance activity and bookings in our life, really can help. And this gets back to that, have baby do all the things. That bleeds into childhood with a lot of people, where I know parents that do have their children scheduled back to back to back, and I have no problem saying this because this is family, but they legitimately, when issues come up, this child wants to be a child.
Yeah.
There is no time for this child to be a child.
Exactly.
It's great. They do enjoy every activity you have them in. 100%. You can see they enjoy it. And they also want to just sit here and draw and play with Legos.
Right.
And just be at home right now. So it will benefit everyone when you have downtime. And even when your child stops napping, I still know I need to build in a quiet time where we're just chilling, reading a book. Maybe we are playing with Legos or drawing or whatever, but it's chill time.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really important. And it goes to actually what I was going to touch on too. Like, I think as far as structure goes with kids, I think part of them, the safety they feel in structure is the knowing. It's not like, oh, at 10 o'clock on every Monday, we're going to be doing this, right? Or like, 5 o'clock on Friday, we're going to get ready for bed.
I feel like this is a skit that we could do, kind of like that Will Ferrell Pearl skit. I should have my sister's kid do this, where we have them be some structured adult that's running the clock. Yeah. Come on, we need to get in the car.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that the structure is in the safety for kids is like knowing what it is that they're expected to do. And also it gives them expectations from you, and then they know what's expected of them.
We had structure, but leaned into the non-structure. I also feel what is important is communication.
Yes.
And whether the structure is there or not, if you know the next day, 2 days ahead, this is what's happening tomorrow. My mom always thought it was crazy that from a very young age, pretty much as soon as my daughter could talk, she would want to talk about what we were doing the next day. And I was like, well, that's what I do with her. As we're going to bed, we talked about what we did that day, and we talked about what we're going to do the next day. Because that just, every day might have been different. It gave her that sense of structure as far as, again, time in a child's mind as they get a little bit older. They only have this, the future and past is only so long for them. That gave her a sense of some structure, even when maybe every day looked different. Right.
Oh. Yeah, and this one person, they kind of said too, like, to set expectations before each activity. And I started doing that, and I found it really amazing because, like, even before we would go to, say, like, a party, I'd be like, hey, we're going to go to a party. There's going to be a lot of people. This is what I want you to do. So in that way, like, we have this time frame, there's a structure, but then, like, there's this fluidity, but he already knows, like, this is what I need to do, and then everything else can be kind of like a free.
We need to create some kind of communication course for adults based off of how with all the tools we've learned to communicate with a baby and a child.
Put it with a kid.
I love this. I'm like, I feel like I need to sit and set the expectations before I do anything with my partner every time.
You know, it's actually funny you say that because I was talking to somebody. We went on a walk. It was with a friend, and she invited me to a walk, and I said, okay, I'm down for the walk, but I just want to let you know I'm not really in the mood to talk. Like, I was having a rough day, and I was like, I just want to throw that out there. Like, I'm not really talkative, but I'm down to, like, go for a walk and listen. And later on the walk, she's like, thank you for, like, setting that expectation. I was like, I didn't even think about it at the time. I just didn't want her to be offended that I wasn't really in a very chatty mood. Yeah. But, so you can do it to adults, and it works great.
We should do it more.
And they appreciate it on the other side of things. Yeah, that would be a fun course. Pulling everything back into this, like, structure versus non-structure. I think when we, as adults, think about structure, we think about time. Like, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, like, that whole thing. And I don't think structure has to be related to time. Like, it can be, like, almost like a boundary that's contained in it. Yeah. So I just want to state that, too.
Yes. I like that. Structures and rhythms versus time and schedules.
Time and schedules. Yeah. And kind of touching back to your, downtime with kids, I find even for myself, like, after I've had, like, a hard day at work, like, I need time to decompress and also to really just process everything that I've been, like, putting my head and body and everything into. And so when we just take kids from activity to activity, there's just no time to, like, process what is happening.
Integration.
Yeah, that integration. I think it's important to do that. And it's harder, I think, if we were in nature and are more kind of ancestral type things, it'd be easier to do because it's just slowed down. But here, we just don't have that integration process.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's good. I'm thinking about that course already.
It's definitely going to happen. And when it does, we'll link it in the show notes.
I need you to take a 5-minute out right now.
Yeah.
The cool down corner.
Yeah. The cool down corner is a real thing as your kid gets older. The calm down box is what we call it. We have a box with like all little calm down toys or things.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So you can like move and touch. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Adult calm down boxes. There's a product. We have so many good ideas today.
I love it. Anything else on structure?
No, I think this hopefully gives some insight. And I just think it's a really important topic because it's something you can practice even before. Yeah. But it's, again, you learn by fire when you have a child.
Learn by fire, yeah.
However, it's something you could totally, if you're pregnant or thinking of having a child, integrate as far as practicing in your own life of rhythms and structures versus time and scheduling.
I like it. And I think just to like kind of sum up the whole balancing thing, really like taking a step back from your week and looking at what you have going on so that you're making sure you're not booking back to back to back in 3 days. Yeah. That type of thing. And then like you said, scheduling in that time and space for yourself too, to have that downtime as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
And this was another topic we had we were going to talk about today, but we decided for another day. And I think this is a great one to lead into, to pair with this topic, is boundaries and desire.
Yes.
and we'll expand on this in some other conversation because this can be a whole thread on its own. But I like to emphasize being okay with canceling and saying no. Mm-hmm. These are two things sometimes. So even if you are thinking of having a child or are pregnant, really practicing saying no and canceling on people when it really feels in alignment to cancel, not just for funsies.
Right.
Because oftentimes too, we're putting more shame and pressure on ourselves than it actually is to cancel with someone else. And let's be honest, once you are a parent, if you have people in your life that really do take offense to you canceling on them, they probably won't last too long in the circle of connection. So it's just something to get used to.
And I think too, in practice, I've started telling people that like, let me check in with you in a couple days, or like, I have this week, it's a little busy, let me just check in the night before or something. Let's tentatively plan, and then that way it's not necessarily a hard no, because sometimes you do want to attend those things, but you're just not sure. And I think we have a tendency to think, oh, we have to say yes or no, but sometimes you can be like, let's see how the week goes, or like, let's see how things play out. Yeah. So I can't wait to talk about boundaries and desires.
Okay. Maybe we'll just go back to back.
We should.
All right. Let us know. I don't know what your thoughts are on schedules versus timing.
And what do you do? Is there any magical wand that has worked for you in your to keep kids on schedule and to keep them?
Tell us your magic spells.
Hey there, amazing listeners. We just want to say a huge thank you for tuning into our convo on the Just This podcast today. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners, and your continued support means the world to us.
If you enjoyed this episode and found value in it, we would be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, or share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it too. Your reviews and shares not only motivate us, but they also help others discover our show.
We're also all about keeping the conversation going and hanging out with our incredible community. Head over to justthis.site, that's justhis.site, where you'll find additional resources, ways to connect with us, and join the conversation, plus some more goodies.
Thank you again for being a part of the Just This community. We'll be back soon. Until next time, remember to take care of yourself and embrace the wonder as you navigate this extraordinary adventure.